Good afternoon. My name is Berak Hussain. I'm the International Student Counselor at the Health and Counseling Services at Carleton University. Welcome to part 2 of our Empowering Your Self-Esteem series that we are offering. And today we're going to be taking a look at love, and not in the traditional sense of, let's say, romantic love, but how to build your love towards yourself from the sources and resources around us, from our childhood experiences, but also how to learn how to love ourselves so that we do not rely on the love and dependence of others in order to feel good about ourselves. Last week, when we first started, we took a look at how to understand the components of building self-esteem, starting with our core worth and learning how to separate our core worth from external values, such as the way we look, our intelligence, where we come from, et cetera, and understanding that our core worth is completely separate and independent, that we are infinite in our core worth. Continuing from that, today, our second building block is the building block of love. And in our final session, we'll be taking a look at growth and how to potentially empower ourselves fully. And in terms of building our sense of self-esteem, which then builds our confidence and the way we put ourselves out in the world, the way we connect with friends, families, colleagues, and the universe around us. So let's get started right into it. This will be an interactive session for those of you who are watching. Absolutely, you can send in your questions and comments, but do let me know if you are having any trouble hearing anything. So let's get started. And today we've got a lot to cover, so I want to make sure that we have everything in place to go. So we'll be doing a few activities along the way as well, in terms of looking at what kind of specific exercises you can do in order to see how to build that sense of self-esteem through love. So I'll be asking questions and giving strategies and so on and so forth. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. And I just want to make sure that we're all good to go. All right. So just as a reminder, again, for those of you who are following along, we are using the Self-Esteem workbook by Gerald Schiraldi. A lot of the information that you see on the slides and what I'll be sharing from the book is directly from this wonderful workbook, which I highly recommend those of you who are interested in working on your self-esteem to get this book and use it along in our workshop, but also to have as a resource. And thank you for those who are letting me know that the sound is loud and clear. Wonderful. So I'm going to be multitasking using several screens and resources. So if I'm not looking directly at the camera, that's exactly what I'm doing. All right, so we'll be taking a look at today a few components. We'll be looking at the basics of unconditional love, looking at how to finding, loving, and healing the core self of ourselves, the language of love, looking at the good opinion of others, acknowledging and accepting positive qualities from ourselves, cultivating body appreciation, reinforcing and strengthening body appreciation. So we'll do a full meditation at the end using the reinforcing and strengthening body appreciation. I love this activity as it really makes you look at yourself in a very different way, including how to cultivate that body appreciation, asserting self-love and appreciation, eyes of love meditation, and finally liking the face in the mirror. So let's get straight to it. So what does it mean to have the basics of unconditional love? And so when we take a look at this concept, we see here that there are two basic ideas here, that we have been created to love and be loved. And it is natural and normal that the need of affirming and to feel like somebody of worth, we need to have that, right? And so when we take a look at this concept here, we need to understand, essentially, taking a look at what love is, right? So when we take a look at that definition of what love is, we're looking at understanding that it is a feeling that we experience, right? So this is a very important building block, like we said, to understanding our sense of self and developing that growth. So just don't mind me as we get going on this. So here, as we said, that each of us are been created to love and be loved, right? And each person needs that affirmation to feel like they're somebody of worth. So that is that everybody needs a source to affirm that they are loved, accepted, and that they're worthwhile. Now, we mentioned in our very first session, we took a look at Abraham Maslow, and he describes that the need for love characterizes every human being that is born. So, no psychological health is possible unless the essential core is accepted, loved, and respected. So, we see that love is important. And if you've not received it from others, then we want to take a look at how you can give that to yourself. So, this is essentially what this building block takes a look at. So, to have that understanding of the nature of love. And we're looking at this from a potentially spiritual perspective. So I'll be putting in that dynamic as well in there. And like we said, it's our second building block. And so when we take a look at that love, it is a feeling that you experience and you recognize it when you see it. It is also an attitude, right? Love wants what's best for the loved one at each moment. So it's really important that love for others and love for the self, they're not mutually exclusive. Ideally, the attitude, of course, is that love encircles both of them. And finally, we see here with the last two is that it is a decision, right? And a commitment that you make every day. Sometimes you will it, even though this may be difficult at times. And it's also finally a skill that is cultivated, right? Sometimes people mistakenly assume that love and related feelings, so for example, like appreciation, acceptance, and affection, these are only feelings that we either have or we don't have. And although anyone can recognize and respond to love, loving is something that we actually learn to do. And we do have part of us that instinct to love. And you see that, for example, with a child and a mother, or a mother and a child, for example, right? So I give a little stories here about love to really get into the understanding of it. Because like we said, when we hear the word love, we mistakenly see it as something that has to do exclusively with romantic love. But that's not what we're looking at here. So I'm sure you've all heard of Mr. Rogers, the Mr. Fred Rogers, the television show, right? So he demonstrated, excuse me, unconditional love daily as he told children, I like you just the way that you are. And he sang the following song. Notice the messages of separating worth from externals here, right? Just like we learned in our last session in terms of liking the course. So he would say things like, it's you I like. It's not the things you wear. It's not the way you do your hair, but it's you I like. The way you are right now, the way down deep inside of you, not the things that you hide. So you see here, I don't know if you know the story of Mr. Rogers, but he was a sickly child and he was confined during ragweed season to the only room in the house that had an air conditioner. And so of 8 years of age, he visited his grandfather's farm and he was so happy and he was running along the stone walls of the farm and excited. And afterwards, his grandfather told him, Fred, you made this day special by being yourself. Remember, there's just one person in the world like you. And I like you just the way they are. So this is where this came from. And so this story, as you see, demonstrates that we each stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us, and that loving unconditionally is learned. So I'm going to give you another story about love here to recognize and to be able to define it. This story really explains it well. So when 70-year-old Bernie Myers of Wilmette, Illinois died suddenly of cancer, his 10-year-old granddaughter, Sarah Myers, didn't have a chance to say goodbye to him. So for weeks, Sarah said little about what she was feeling. And then one day she came home from a friend's birthday party with a bright red helium balloon. So she went into the house, her mother recalls, and she came out carrying the balloon and an envelope addressed to Grandpa Bernie, in heaven up high. So the envelope contained a letter which Sarah told her grandfather that she loved him and hoped somehow that he could hear her. So it's almost like she's putting closure to her sadness, right? So she printed her return address on the envelope, tied the envelope to the balloon, and let it go out. So the balloon seemed so fragile. Her mother remembers she said that she didn't think it would make it past the trees, but it did. Look how far it got. 2 months passed. Then one day a letter arrived addressed to Sarah Myers' family. And it came from York, Pennsylvania. And in the letter it said, Dear Sarah, family and friends, your letter to Grandpa Bernie Myers apparently reached its destination and was read by him. I understand they can't keep material things up here, so I drifted back to Earth. They just keep thoughts, memories, love, and things like that. Sarah, whenever you think about your grandfather, he knows and is very close by with overwhelming love. Sincerely, Don Cobb. also a grandpa. So Cobb was a 60-year old retired receiving clerk, and he had found the letter and then the deflated balloon nearby while hunting in Pennsylvania, so almost 600 miles from where they were in Illinois. So the balloon had floated at least 3 states and one of the Great Lakes before coming to rest on a bush. And so what Cobb said, though it took me a couple of days to think about it, to say, I knew it was important that I had to write to Sarah. And so Sarah says, I just wanted to hear from Grandpa somehow. In a way, now I think I've heard from him. This is a beautiful story retelling what love could mean. And like we said, it is not necessarily just when it comes to romantic love, but love, as we know, comes from our family, even from, as you see here, a message through time and space. So the sources is really important to understand, right? And you see how um, this young lady, she received that love from her grandfather that way, right? So it's really a beautiful story that takes a look at that. Now, the sources of love, as we know, they could be experienced from these three sources that we have here, from parents, from the self, and our significant others, right? Theologians add an important fourth source, which is divine love, spiritual love, right? And so most theologies teach that God's love is unconditional, which is a gift of grace, and it's always accessible and the securest foundation for growth. So this spiritual foundation, it can be absolutely used very importantly, and a full exploration of God's love is beyond the scope of what we're doing in this session today. However, I will be including parts of that because I know a lot of people are interested in that part when we do talk about love and building love. So what we may put it in here and there as needed. So when we take a look at parents' love, so this is an ideal source, of course, of unconditional love. Although ideally and nicely, we want to be able to receive this unconditional love from our parents. We know that sometimes that's not the case in some stories, right? Um, no children ever receive that perfect unconditional love from their parents. And what we say, it's not really productive or helpful to waste time begrudging the love that you didn't receive from the past. What we want to do, and as we discussed previously, is that blaming, it keeps you stuck in the past and doesn't contribute to your well-being, and it makes you feel helpless as a victim, right? And of course, in therapy, it's very useful to talk about that to find that growth and that healing. And let's take a look at some strategies after. So love from the self is also, if one not has received love from others, you could ask, well, how can I furnish the love that I need to flourish, right? So one can provide this needed love in many ways, as we're going to see shortly. And finally, significant others. So this could be friends, it could be spouses, relatives, and so we put that as a last here resource because although it's nice to get this love from others, like with parents, sometimes we don't get that. There could be, really bad friendships or even with family, bad experiences, and especially from significant others, especially when we're talking about abusive relationships and unhealthy relationships, right? And then we're more likely to get reactions from others in terms of how they respond to us, right? And so then that impacts our core worth. So when people lack that realistic, appreciative opinion of themselves, then they become more socially needy, which is why you start relying on external factors of relationships. So they turn to others for approval for their core rather than themselves that desperately wants that. So they can smother others, for example, and emotionally suck them up dry because they want that approval and acceptance, which makes them feel temporarily good, right? So when their security drives people away, the rejection, of course, is devastating. So even if they win the esteem of some of the others, this is other esteem, not self-esteem. And this is what our focus is on, is that the esteem of others is not a substitute for that inner security that we want to work on. So of course, it's really important for us to be responsible, to be our inner source of love, right? You for you. And so you are that source, right? Of course, when we're talking about divine love, that is the relationship between you and God and how you connect to God, right? And the universe that way. So before exploring that ways to furnish that self, let's look at some important additional premises when it comes to love in terms of our reflections, in terms of looking at how to understand how to find love and heal our core self. All right, so let's look on to the next slide now. So when we take a look at this concept here, this is an interesting one. If you didn't have loving parents, then you had better learn to be a loving parent yourself. So this doesn't necessarily mean a parent to others. It means a parent to you, right? So we see here that life is not about the pedestals and the power. It truly is about that love, right? And so each person has been created to love and be loved. And if that love it's that love that really heals, right? And not so much the intellect, right? Although we know that cognition supports the process of that healing of that love. So, in a sense, love is the foundation of effective stress management because it is the foundation of our mental health and our self-esteem. So stress management, like we spoke about in our last session, is really about managing our life. So typically this teaches us life skills to help and to cope and be in the present, right? So this largely ignores the power of healing the past so that we can enjoy the present. And that's what we want to focus on. Studies have shown that writing about our past and present worries, they greatly improve the mood and our immune system because you found some closure and healing, right? And there's different theories around to explain these types of results. Some think that putting pent up worries or traumas on paper, it releases and discharges them. That's why we always talk about journaling and writing to get things out. So this provides that relief, right? It's no longer just going around in your limbic system. It's actually gone out. And so it's no longer just twirling around in there, right? So that writing really helps gain that distance and objectivity and perspective that sometimes gives solutions, right? I think that there's other reasons for it as well, because writing about feelings acknowledges, validates, and it honors those feelings, which then typically become disowned in that shame-based people, right? In the way that people do that, right? So writing about your feelings is a great way of loving yourself. So that is one strategy. What I want to take a look at also here is understanding that if we don't get that love from others, right, we got to get it to ourselves. So for example, looking at how love heals that inner child within us, right? So each of us has this light, this energy, right? This core piece of wholeness, of joy, goodness, innate worth, right? And these feelings and emotions that are good, that makes us all about us being humans, right? So the core being is sometimes metaphorically called that inner child. And I see that a lot in therapy when a lot of clients who come and they have a lot of pain from, let's say, when they were children or past traumas. So then we talk about that inner child as well in that context, right? So this inner child, it possesses an embryo. So every attribute it needs, plus the inborn tendency to grow and polish in the rough edges, right? So with time, we see to one degree or another that there's a separate or split from the inner child. And we understand this process. Sometimes it's called abandonment, criticism, abuse, or neglect, right? And so this interacts with the personal fallibilities and our choices, right? So this leads people to conclude that they're defective. They feel that they're flawed as individuals, and they don't believe that they make mistakes, but it's that they are the mistakes. So you see how you start self-hating on yourself, right? And you're bad at the core. So they don't believe that inner child here becomes covered, rejected, disowned, it's split off, or it's separated. And so this is what you see in self-dislike that is rooted in that, and shame-based behaviors that sometimes we exhibit, right? And this relates to stress-related dysfunction because of the self-hate, right? The truth is, however, that inner child, although it's battered, sometimes it's covered and it's split off, it survives, right? It's intact. And so the child that you once were, or you still are, our goal is to heal that, right? And the cure to that is love. How? So sometimes, when we get help from professionals, we don't see it as love, but it is, because that love that we work on in the processing of healing and therapy, it provides that foundation for our growth, right? And so as the adults, we operate through logic, right? And so the core inner child, what does it want? It wants that emotions. It wants that, hungers for that love, and continues to cry out until it happens. So this is where the stress related dysfunctions occur as you're growing up and you're finding yourself, you're stuck in the past, you're unhappy, or it comes out, the inner child that is hurt sometimes comes out in the dysfunction of relationships as well, right? So we understand this process too well, right? When we talk about stress, parenting styles to stress, we can see that, we're always aiming towards that perfection and we're struggling with that. So it's really important that when we are trying to heal and work with anger, let's say, or dealing with that social neediness of acceptance, we look at that core base of healing. So let's take a look at how we can repair early wounds, so to speak. So I want you to listen to this activity, and it's a corrective experience that we can work on ourselves to help heal, looking to find and healing that inner child within us. And it's called Find and Love the Core Self. So the purpose of this 5-step activity is to find and love that core self of yours and that inner child. So first, what you want to do is write down the names of your most cherished friends, family members, and loved ones, right? People that you feel good to be around, people who make you feel good, accepted, or loved, okay? And first, identify couples, individuals. And then number 2, find a place to sit quietly and comfortably where you're not going to be disturbed for about 15 minutes or so. Number 3, start taking slow, deep breaths like we done before in other workshops. So breathing in through your nose, holding your breath, and exhaling, and saying the word relax as you breathe out of your mouth. Number 4, imagine yourself as an infant surrounded by loving people. So these can be the people that you identified earlier, or 2 warm, loving grown-ups, and whoever that you can picture and imagine in your mind. So you can imagine perhaps parents or anybody that gives you that warmth, right? And then perhaps you can imagine composite figures of people you have known and loved who made you feel like a somebody, a person of worth. That's also another option. So number 5, as an infant, you needed to hear the words that follow, right? So imagine yourself hearing the statements that I'm going to say right now from whomever that you're picturing in front of you. We're so glad you're here. Welcome to the world. Welcome to our family and home. We're so glad you're a boy or a girl. You're beautiful. All of our children are beautiful. We want to be near you, to hold you, and to love you. Sometimes you'll feel joy and laughter, sometimes sadness and pain and anger and worry. These feelings are okay with us. You see how this statement right there is allowing you to express these normal emotions. We'll be here for you. We'll give you all the time you need to get your needs for them to be met. It's okay to wander and separate and explore and experiment. We will not leave you alone. We will be with you. So imagine the speakers of these words are cradling you, are holding you, are loving you, right? Gently gazing on you with the eyes of love as you respond to these feelings. So we want you to practice this imagery for 2-3 days in a row, right? And continuing on to this next activity here. So this next activity takes, again, a look at the corrective experience of embracing. So the first one is about finding, right? And the second one is about embracing your lost inner child. So again, find a nice quiet place that you can reflect for about 15 minutes. Relax and focus on your breathing to slow down the heart rate. And then being mindful of your breathing, be aware of the air as you breathe in and you breathe out. And notice the difference in the air as you inhale and exhale. Focus on that difference. Now imagine the following. Using a masculine or feminine pronouns, doesn't matter, in your mind. Think in your mind what I'm going to say next. You're walking down a long flight of stairs. Walk down the stairs slowly and count down from 10 to 1. When you reach the bottom of the stairs, turn left and walk down a long corridor, doors on your right and doors on your left. And each door has a colored symbol on it. And as you look towards the end of the corridor, there's a force field of light. Walk through the light and go back through the time to a street where you lived before you were 7 years old. Walk down that street to the house which you lived. Look at the house. Notice the roof, the color of the house and the windows and the doors, and see a small child come to the front door. How is this child dressed? What color are the child's shoes? Walk over to the child and tell her that you're from the future. Tell her that you know better than anyone what she's been through. Her suffering, her abandonment, her shame. Tell her that all of the people she will ever get to know, you are the only one she will never lose. Now ask her if she's willing to go home with you. If not, tell her you'll visit her tomorrow. If she's willing to go with you, take her by the hand and start walking. Feel the warmth and the joy of the tiny hand of being with that little person. As you walk away, See your mom and dad come out the porch. Wave goodbye to them. Look over your shoulders. You continue walking away and see your parents becoming smaller and smaller until they're completely gone. Turn the corner and see your higher power and your most cherished friends waiting for you. Embrace all your friends and allow the higher power to come into your heart. You see them all, embracing the child with joy. Embrace your child and feel her warmly embrace you. Hold your child in your hand and let her shrink to the size of your hand. Or embrace the child and feel her absorb into you, filling you with all of her joy, hope, and potential. Tell her that you're placing her in your heart so you can always carry her with you. Promise that you'll meet her for 5 minutes each day. Pick an exact time and commit to that time. Next, imagine that you walk to some beautiful outdoor place, stand in the middle of that place, and reflect on the experience you just had. Get a sense of communion within yourself with God, higher power. And with all things, now look up at the sky, see the purple, white clouds from the number 5. See the number 5 become 4. Be aware of your feet and your legs. See the 4 become a 3. Feel the life in your stomach and your arms. See the 3 become 2. Feel the life in your hands, your face, your whole body. Know that you're about to be fully aware and able to do all the things with your fully awake mind. See the 2 become 1 and be fully awake, remembering this beautiful experience. And so, this activity, you can get a photo of yourself, if you can, to remind you of the child that lives within you, and practice this imagery, again, for a few days. I think this is a really powerful way of talking to that young child and giving them what they need that perhaps they did not get at the time. We can do that to ourselves. I've done this in therapy many, many times, especially with childhood trauma, whether it's sexual or physical abuse, and I've seen it work wonders with people over time when we work through that trauma. And as you see here with the slide, it's almost humorous when we take a look at this picture here, is that you see in this convention here of adult children of normal parents. And you see there's only 2 here. And the idea here is that our parents themselves perhaps are a result of trauma or just a life full of experiences that could have impacted them negatively, which can also impact them in their daily lives, especially as they parent, right? Us. And they are also a work in healing progress. So this is a really, really powerful way of finding, like we said, finding that love and healing our core self by giving that love to ourselves by doing this simple but very powerful and effective activity. So what are your thoughts for those who are watching? What are your thoughts on this interesting activity? You can give me feedback while we go on to the next slide. Has anybody tried that right now, by the way, and try to love and heal? Give that love to yourself. It's a pretty powerful activity if you try it. And it's a wonderful way of finding that way of giving that love and healing to yourself, right? Again, we always think that we're going to find our love through other people. Like, if only I find the right partner, if only this, then they're going to give me what I'm missing. But in fact, no, it has to come from ourselves, right? So let's take a look at the language of love. I'm sure you've heard the book, The 5 Languages of Love. This is somewhat different and similar at the same time. So we take a look here at that. In terms of loving relationships, those are characterized by what? And if you look at Dr. John Gray, who's well known for his Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus series, he talks about this as well. And it's about appreciation, liking, respect, and acceptance. Although they can be in different orders for males and females in a relationship, generally we are looking for, all of us, for that appreciation, that liking, respect, and acceptance. And we know that healthy relationships, they also seem to have these unspoken thoughts of, I realized a long time ago that you were not perfect. Not exactly what I expected. I might laugh with you about some of your preferences, your idiosyncrasies, but underneath the humor is genuine, right? There's that genuine liking of each other. And I'll never speak with contempt or ridicule. So this atmosphere is what you see of respect. It's paradoxically, it allows people to change and grow, right? And if they choose to, then the growth is really powerful. So similarly, an attitude of kindness towards oneself also encourages that and sustains that growth. So just as it comes from another person in a relationship, it also from ourselves. And we've seen how negative internal dialogue can sabotage that growth, right? And enjoyment of life. So this skill that we're going to do right now, it's called changing channels. This helps us to reinforce the decision to think of ourselves realistically and kindly, right? So it's almost like what you see here with this picture of the flowers there, right? Of we see flowers as these really beautiful creations, right, of nature. But look at how they can look at themselves. We do that to ourselves quite a bit sometimes, right? So let's take a look at how we can change channels when we take a look at building the language of love, right? So we're going to take a look at some negative self-talk that we make to others, right? And this language is very demeaning and it's degrading, right? So when you notice yourself thinking of making such comments, it's wise to stop, right? And tell yourself, stop and change channels. So changing channels simply means thinking and speaking about yourself respectfully instead of the self-dislike. So this encourages that growth and builds self-esteem. So notice the emotional shift that occurs when you change the channel. So let's do a few exercises here. So number one, I'm only a mother. How many times have you heard that from moms? I'm just a mom, or I'm just a teacher, I'm just a nurse. So right there, you see how it's negative. You're demeaning yourself by not giving yourself value to this being or this profession or what you are in life at the moment, right? So if we stop, so we're going to do stop in our mind, and then we're going to change channels. We're going to say, I am, for example, a teacher or a mother or a nurse or whatever, right? I am an honest, hardworking human being. I find satisfaction in being a hardworking person. I am looking to advance. So you see how right away, instead of saying I am just, then you replace it, right? By changing the channels right away, you're giving that part of the self-esteem to grow. Another example, and I hear this quite often from people who worry a lot about the future or a project or their courses and say, I'll never succeed, I'll never pass, I'll never, hand in this project and so on and so forth. So here we want to stop, right? So right away, stop, and we're going to change channels and we're going to say something along the lines of success is exerting effort, moving in the desired direction, right? Success is the effort that I put into the work that I'm doing. No matter how well or not so well I do in terms of grades, I've done my absolute best, and that's what matters. That is success. So you see how you've, again, changed channels. Let's try one more here. I will probably, blow this. I will probably not do a good job with this. Again, it's the same thing where you want to stop, change channels to say, I'm not afraid to try my best here because my worth comes from within. My worth is not dependent upon if this comes out 100%. Perhaps people with body image issues, I am fat, right? Okay, so let's stop and change channels and say, well, I have extra weight and I'm still working on this. My key thing is that I'm trying to be healthy, and we'll get to that. So this activity, changing channels, this is something you can easily do, right? By doing this for several days and then saying this out loud to yourself. So writing it down, and you can do this for a couple of days. So for 2 days, and then you'll notice over time, when you start doing this, you are replacing this with a more reasonable and growth-like statement that can give that love to you from you. So the language of love is very important. Just like these flowers that we see as absolutely beautiful, but unfortunately, they don't see themselves as beautiful as they are. So what are your thoughts on this? I like what somebody mentioned here, that moms, teachers, and nurses, they create and sustain society. Absolutely. Because these are, you could say, positions of the natural givers, right? And natural givers are all about sustaining. So we want to take that same energy and sustain ourselves, right? And give that growth to ourselves. So let's take a look at the next slide here, where we're going to be looking at summing up this section here by understanding, and this is something I do a lot in therapy with my clients, where we take a look at this idea of, you would never be hurtful or mean to somebody, right? To another person, unless you're deliberately being it, right? Being a jerk and trying to hurt somebody, that's different, or being abusive, but you would never deliberately, hurt somebody. if they came to you with an issue, right? Like somebody comes to you and they're feeling low, you wouldn't do that, right? So then why are you so hurtful and mean to yourself? Why do you say such hurtful and mean things to you when you don't deserve that, right? So to love and support you, you want to do that. You would give that love and support just like you would give to somebody else, give that to you. Imagine how good that would feel. When you make a child feel good, or your partner or parent, friends, when you bring something to make them smile, right? What if you were to do that for you? What if you give that to you? So it's time to give back to yourself. Simple thing, it's hugging yourself. And that is so powerful. Like even just holding yourself, you can release those oxytocin hormones in your body, which can give you the energy of feeling good. When you hold somebody for 20 seconds, there's the release of oxytocin, considered the love hormone, which is why you feel so good after a hug. You can do that to yourself as well, right? So this is food for thought. Just like you would treat somebody else nicely and make them feel good, bring that back to yourself. Let's try and do that. So let's take a look now at this other activity in terms of looking at acknowledging, and I think I skipped here. Sorry, let me go back. Let's go back one. I think I may have skipped or deleted a file here by accident. I think I might have. Let me see here. No, we're good. We're good. All right. So you get so into it sometimes with what you're talking about and reading it, then you kind of mess up on the slides. So let's take a look now in terms of understanding how we acknowledge and accept the good qualities of ourselves, right? So when we take a look at this concept, the self-esteem is cultivated by acknowledging what is presently right about oneself, right? Being realistic. So this can be difficult sometimes because we're so used to the habit of negative thoughts that it's easier to identify what's wrong rather than what's right. And although there's a time to benefit of acknowledging things that we can work on and weaknesses and shortcomings, when this becomes the dominant force, this is where you see a lot of negative exclusion, right, of our strengths. And this is where self-esteem suffers. So this exercise that we're going to take a look at is a practice in acknowledging and reinforcing our strengths with appreciation. So this is not to make ourselves arrogant and puff ourselves up, rather being realistically acknowledging of what we do have, right? And so this is a method that enhances our self-esteem. In just a few weeks, as seen in research of 3 Canadians by Gauthier, Pellerin, and Renaud, who did the study. So just to see here how we can jump to doing that, I'm going to put up a few characteristics here, as you see here, of our character traits, okay? So to do that, just take a quick check. This is just a few here, and the book obviously has a lot more, and I'll read some of them. So clean, handy, punctual, friendly, gentle, patient, persuasive, talented, cheerful, generous, expressive, adventurous, sharing, conciliatory, spontaneous, tactful, affectionate, adventurous. So these are some characteristics that you can place a check or tick off, some of the things that you have sometimes, right? And then you want to check the words that you are describing. That there's sometimes that you are reasonably good at. So for example, you could be a helper, a debater, a planner, a friend, a learner, a leader or an organizer, a thinker, a mate, a friend, right? A risk taker, a storyteller. So with this idea here is that perfection was not required to look or check off some of these. You notice that? You say that really nobody has every single one of these all of the time, or we can do them perfectly, right? However, if you checked a few of these, then you have managed to maintain a reasonable sanity in a very complex world, because if we can function with some of these things, then we're doing pretty well, right? So give yourself that pat on the back. You're doing great. So remember, this was just a little warm up. So now we're going to get into the exercise that has been very effective to building self-esteem. So let's take a look at that. And it's called the Cognitive Rehearsal. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take 10 statements that we're going to make based on character and personality traits. Okay. So we're going to develop a list of 10 statements about yourself that are meaningful and are realistic. Okay. So this can be really challenging. So you can get some cue cards, or you can write this on your phone. What we want to do is write 10 positive statements, okay, using some of the characteristics and traits that we just described before, right? So, for example, I am a loyal, responsible member of my family, my team, my club, my work, etc., etc. I am clean, organized, orderly, etc., etc., etc. I am a concerned listener. I'm an active listener to people who need that non-judgmental listening, right? So you can mention a role that you're in that and how that you perform well, and try to add specific personal characteristics that can explain, right? So instead of saying that one is a good, let's say, soccer player, one might add that, this person really, quickly sizes up the situation, reacts quickly and decisively, and knows how to make a decision on the spot of what they need to do, right? So you see the roles can change, right, after an injury or an age. However, the character and the personality trait can be expressed across many different roles. So that's what we want to focus on. So I recommend writing these 10 statements, like we said, maybe in your phone or in cue cards that you can carry them around. And we want to repeat this activity for a few days, right? And each day add another additional statement. So day one, day two, write a few more. And every day look at them, meditate on them, reflect on them, right? And see for the evidence of the accuracy in a very realistic way. All right. Sometimes I know a lot of people can be really hard on ourselves, but here we're building up. We started giving that self-love to that inner child. Now we're building up with these statements, right? And using the language of love as well. Okay. So we found, the studies have found that people who do this, these are some of the comments over the years that they've gave when practicing the strategies, like, hey, I'm not so bad after all. I got better with practice. I didn't believe them at first. So if you're hard on yourself not believing, then I found myself smiling, when I started doing this more. I feel motivated to act on these characteristics, right? I feel peaceful and calm. I have learned a lot more good than I give myself credit for. So you see how you give that to yourself. It's beautifully powerful, great strategy that can really, really, really boost that sense of self that we are trying to build. Any comments or questions on this cognitive rehearsal of yourself that you can practice? I'd love to hear your comments on that. All right, so we've come to the last few parts, which are still quite a bit here. And we're going to take a look now at cultivating body appreciation, because I think this is something that could really make us look at ourselves in a powerfully different way. Because a lot of people perhaps have a lot of body image issues and don't appreciate themselves. So when you start looking at your body differently this way, it truly, truly has a magnificent impact on us. So let's get going and working on how to cultivate that body appreciation. Okay. So the body is an external, it's not the core, it's that external. From all those externals that we talked about earlier, it does not equal one's worth, right? However, the body we can see is a metaphor for the core in a way that we experience the body. It's often similar to the way we experience our core selves because we feel that way, right? So the body, for example, is one way that we can receive and experience love. So consider the feeling of a hug, like we mentioned earlier, or a gentle touch with someone who genuinely cares. That feeling the body senses is also perceived by that inner core of ours. So if one views the body in the mirror with appreciation, it's easier to experience the core in a similar way. So a respectful, caring attitude towards the body reflected in sensible health practices tends to positively influence one's feelings towards our core self. Conversely, through mistreatment or self-harm or ridicule, the body can be shamed, and often by extension, the core. So you see how it's all connected. So for example, if one thinks I would appreciate my body if I didn't have that blemish or that wrinkle or that extra fat, then you would also likely place a harsh condition on loving the core self. That's a negative thought that impacts you physically. So if one is hard on one's physical imperfections, it will also be an unkindness, so to speak, to the core self. So no matter how negatively one has come to view our bodies, however, or negatively it has been treated, the inner core we are saying is external, is separate from that. It is still intact. However, it is responsive to healing, refreshing, restorative love. And so as we cultivate that appreciation of the body, becomes easier to experience the core self more kindly. And so let's take a look at this exercise. It will help us cultivate a wholesome appreciation for the body, no matter what the present condition is. And although some in the world may have transmitted, let's say, our negative self statements that we had earlier or critical messages that you've heard about your body, everyone can learn or relearn to experience the body positively. So let's take a look at this and look at the magnificence of our bodies, right? So Dr. Russell Nelson, who is a distinguished heart surgeon, has suggested considering the magnificent sights that you have seen, for example, a majestic mountain, a powerful horse gracefully galloping across a green meadow, a skyscraper. So magnificent sights. Now consider the magnificent body that you see in the mirror, ignoring any imperfection. Okay. And the word magnificent here derives from two Latin root words, magni, which means great, and facere, which means to make. So magnificent, thus, or greatly made, applies to the human body as well, because it is beautifully greatly made, right? Depending on your beliefs, of course, then you'll see the body in a different way. But let's begin to appreciate some of the wonders of the treasure that is our bodies. From conception to maturity. At conception, a sperm and egg combine in a way that is only partially understood. From this union is formed a single cell that will multiply countless times according to the unique, unmatchable genetic code that is inherited. The sum of all of their ancestors. The cells multiply according to this genetic code of 6 billion steps of DNA. Bet you didn't think of yourself starting off like that, right? So though it could stretch according to the length of an adult's body, this genetic code within each cell's nucleus to the length of only 1/2500 of an inch. It's a lot of science there. Soon after conception, cells are producing over 50,000 proteins needed for life. Although each cell contains the same genetic blueprint for the body and could turn into any kind of cell in the body, cells specialize by activating and repressing certain genes. Therefore, some cells become the cells of the eye, some become the cells of the heart, others become needed blood vessels or nerves that appear in their proper places at the proper times. Over the course of a lifetime, the cells of the body will manufacture 5 tons of protein. Each day, the mature body produces 300 billion cells to maintain the body's total of 75 trillion cells. Placed end to end, the cells of the body would stretch 1,180,000 miles. I bet you didn't look at yourself as magnificently made at that level. Let's take a look at the circulatory system. The heart brings life to every cell. Weighing only 7 ounces, this magnificent muscle tirelessly pumps 3,000 gallons of blood each day, beating 2.5 billion times over the course of a lifetime, a pace that would tire other muscles in 10 minutes. The heart actually is 2 pumps side by side. One propels blood forcibly through enough to circulate through the body's 75,000 miles of blood vessels. The other sends blood to the lungs so gently that it does not damage the delicate air sacs. When separated, cells of the heart beat with different rhythms. Together, however, they beat with the unison and synchrony of an exquisite symphony orchestra. Technology cannot replicate the heart's durability. The force of blood hurled against the aorta would quickly damage rigid metal pipes, where the flexible thin tissue valves of the heart are sturdier than any man-made materials. Have you ever thought of your heart or the circulatory system that way? I bet you have not. How magnificent is that? The amazing skeletal system. The 250 bones, the 206 bones in the body are ounce for ounce stronger than solid steels or reinforced concrete. Unlike these man-made materials, they become denser and stronger with weightlifting. 68 constantly lubricated joints allow for incredible continuous movement. For example, the 33 vertebrates of the spine, supported by 400 muscles and 1,000 ligaments, permit an infinite variety of head and body positions. Or consider the vast capacities of the hand, right? To powerfully turn the lid of a jar, or delicately remove a splinter, or pick up a mug to drink some water. For durability, for precision, and complexity, science cannot duplicate the thumb, whose rotation requires thousands of messages from the brain. The hand will tirelessly extend and flex the joints of the fingers 25 million times over a lifetime. An incredibly efficient utilization of space, the marrow of the bones will manufacture 2.5 million red blood cells each second, replenishing a supply of 25 trillion red blood cells, which laid end to end, which we would reach 31,000 miles into the sky. That is pretty magnificent, wouldn't you say? Ponder the role of the body's 650 muscles. A simple step takes 200 muscles. 40 leg muscles lift the leg, while muscles in the back maintain the balance and abdominal muscles keep you from falling backwards. Magnificent, wouldn't you say? Let's take a look now at sensing the world. Sip a refreshing drink at a curbside cafe. You smell food cooking and hear the sounds of people in animated conversation. You see multicolored flowers, people strolling, clouds lazily rolling by, and you feel the wind on your face. In less than a blink of an eye, complicated neural circulatory and countless signals in the brain allowed you to sense the world around you. Let's consider the wonder of these incredible capacities. The eyes, the ears, the nose are truly marvels of miniaturization. When you look at yourself in the mirror, you see the 3 dimensions through the image. It's entirely flat. Constant movement of the eyes, right? Equivalent to walking 50 miles a day. And tens of millions of receptors in the retina that perform billions of calculations each second make the eye more sensitive and priceless than any camera. Unlike the camera, the eyes are self-cleansing. Conversation displaces the eardrum at distance equal to the diameter of a hydrogen atom. Yet the exquisitely sensitive ears enable us to distinguish individual voices and turn towards the source of that sound. In addition, the ears inform the brain of the slightest postural imbalance. Isn't that incredible? Magnificent. Compressed into in an area smaller than a postage stamp. Each nostril has 10 million receptors for odors, enabling the brain to distinguish and remember up to 10,000 different scents. That is pretty magnificent. Could you imagine a finer covering from the body than the skin? Under the average square centimeter, the size of the little fingernail, are hundreds of nerve endings that detect touch, temperature, and pain, not to mention 100 sweat glands to cool and numerous melanocytes to protect from the sun's rays. That is pretty magnificent what our skins can do in sensing the world. Now let's take a look at the remarkable defenses. Each moment, the body defends against an army of potent invaders with a defense system that is more sophisticated than any nation's. The skin forms the first line of protection. Its salty acidic makeup kills many microbes and keeps many other impurities from entering the body. Each day we inhale 17,000 pints of air, the equivalent of a small room full of air containing 20 billion foreign particles. The nose, airways, and lungs constitute a remarkable self-contained, air-conditioned, and humidifying system. Lysozyme in the nose and throat destroys most bacteria and viruses. Mucus trap particles in the airways and millions of tiny hairs called the cilia. They vigorously sweep mucus back to the throat for swallowing. Powerful acid in the stomach neutralizes these potent microbes, which is why a child can drink water from a puddle and usually remain healthy. So in the nose, incoming air is conditioned to a constant 75 to 80% humidity. On cold days, additional blood is sent to the nose to warm up that air. Those microbes that evade destruction trigger a most remarkable flurry of activity. Imagine this. Billions of white cells relentlessly ingest or slay invaders that have entered the body. Other cells of the immune system multiply and summon antibody-producing cells. 1 million different antibodies can be produced, each specific to a single microbe. So when needed, white cells can trigger fever that help to defeat these invaders and shut down fever when the battle is over. The lessons of the battle are preserved as the immune system remembers the invader and the way to defend against it in the future. Near the digestive tract, which absorbs the needed nutrients, is the liver. In addition to 500 other vital processes, this vital organ processes all nutrients absorbed by the intestines and neutralizes toxins. For example, in the 8 seconds it takes for blood to flow through it, the liver greatly detoxifies caffeine or nicotine, which can be really deadly if sent directly to the heart. Bet you didn't know that, right? The magnificence of that part of our system. Let's look at the body's wisdom now as we get closer to finishing up our appreciation of how to cultivate that. So overseeing the myriad complexities of the bodies, of course, is our brain. Weighing but 3 pounds and containing 100 billion nerve cells, this organ makes even the finest of computers seem crude by comparison. Since each nerve cell can connect with thousands of others, each in turn connecting with the others, the flexibility, the complexity, and potential of the brain is absolutely inspiring. The brain, for example, keeps the interior of the body remarkably constant to preserve life. So if a person is living in the desert, let's say in 120-degree weather, the brain directs more blood to the skin to release heat and increase sweating, perspiration. So in the Arctic, for example, blood is diverted from the skin to critical internal organs, while shivering, when you get cold, that shivering generates the heat. So if a person bleeds, water is pulled from the tissue into the blood vessels, and non-essential blood vessels constrict to keep the blood pressure adequate. While maintaining internal equilibrium, the brain also makes decisions, solves problems, dreams, daydreams, right? Retrieves stored memories, recognizes faces, and affords unlimited capacity for wisdom and personality. Finally, the other wonders of our bodies, I'd like you to consider the body, how it converts the grain of a wheat once waving in a field to the energy expended by the wave of our hand. How magnificent is that, right? Or to living tissue, first by a complex series of transformations in the digestive tract, and even more complex transformations in the cell. Appreciate for a moment here the 300 million alveoli or air sacs in our lungs, which exchange oxygen from the air we breathe for carbon dioxide from the body cells that are released. Spread flat, these alveoli would almost cover a tennis court. Imagine how huge that is. Ponder the body's ability to repair itself. Unlike a table leg or a pipe, bones, blood vessels, skin, and other parts of the body, they can self-repair. How magnificent is that? Many organs have a backup system. 2 eyes, 2 kidneys, 2 lungs. The single vital liver, however, has an extraordinary capacity for regeneration. It will function if 80% is destroyed or cut away and can rebuild itself in just a few months to its original size. Contemplation of the complexities and the magnificence of the body certainly helps us to regard our bodies with appreciation, hopefully a new light. Now let's turn to this exercise that also helps us experience our bodies with a wholesome appreciation that we'll do at the very end of our session today. What are your thoughts so far on what this activity of looking at your body in such an amazing, incredible way makes you look at yourself in an incredible way, right? So we need to be very aware that we are indeed magnificent, our bodies, right? And when you learn to cultivate and appreciate that, right, you find yourself being able to loving yourself a little bit more when you look at how magnificently you are made, right? So Do you see the way that you view your body, how it influences the way you look at yourself? Through this exercise, what we've done is we've appreciated how magnificent each part of our body is. So dwelling on the negative is a cognitive distortion, right? That keeps our focus only on that negative thought. So as a result, your mood can become generally negative, like we said earlier. In a similar way, if you can focus on the most negative parts of your body, right, that can also impact you. So if you looking into you might look in the mirror and then you look at something that you don't like feature, that again is going to constitute that negative feeling, right? If you focus on fatigue, illness of your energy or your spirit, or focusing on pain, right? So rather than doing that, what we want to do is by increasing the body appreciation, do this exercise for a few days. So at least 6 times throughout the day, look at your body directly in the mirror and notice and appreciate something that is right about it, like the different systems that we just took a look at, right? Sometimes notice the jewels that were described, the skeletal, the sensing, all of that, and consider the miracles that we have inside of our body. So each time you have those negative thoughts or looking at yourself in the mirror, just not liking something about yourself, go back, consider the skin, the sensory organs, the hands, fingers, and a feature of yourself attractive, and notice how appreciation is working right there. It's a wonderful, wonderful exercise to do. Practice that regularly, and you'll notice a really huge improvement in yourself in terms of how you can appreciate yourself that way. All right, let's take a look now about asserting self-love and appreciation. Let me just jump to that here. Take a moment to let all of that information sink in, because that definitely was a lot to pack in, but beautiful nevertheless. So just give me a moment while I get to that. Okay, so we're taking a look right now at the assertion of self-love, right? How do we assert our self-love? So this is done through this activity here, where it means that we choose to be, taking a look at ourselves here. It's about choosing to be unconditional and giving that unconditional love to ourselves, right? Even though there are imperfections that we have amongst ourselves that we'd like to change otherwise, right? For example, like we said, I'm fat, I hate myself, versus, see, to be glad inside of me, that I'm glad that I'm who I am and appreciate all the parts that hold me up together, but I'd feel better and enjoy life a little bit better, let's say, if I maybe got a little healthier or lost a little bit of fat. That's okay. You're allowed to reframe it in such a healthier and more positive way, right? So one person, let's say, who's overweight says that comment, I'm fat, I hate myself. And and then that person says, well, I'm really glad inside to be me, but I'd feel better if I change. So if you notice the difference in these two thoughts, emotional tones between these two thoughts, right? One is obviously more negative, and that will probably not really motivate you to go exercise and eat healthy, right? The other one does, right? And this is where we acknowledge, if you remember in the last session, we talked about acknowledging reality, but then doing the nevertheless. This is very similar to that when it comes to that self-assertion. So we know that acknowledging unpleasant external conditions without condemning or judging ourselves is important. And people who dislike, they tend to use the word because. So we want to change because they're more therefore thoughts, right? So because I am fat, therefore I hate myself. When we think like that, this is how we erode our self-esteem. When we replace with the nevertheless skill, this is a more realistic, upbeat, and it's an immediate response to unpleasant external factors that hit us, right? So a response that reinforces one's sense of worth by separating the worth from the externals, right? We want to do that. So here's what we can expand on nevertheless by using this format. So for example, even though, so choose an external. For example, I'm overweight, right? Nevertheless, I love me, right? I'm sure of myself. Inside, I'm really glad to be who I am. Deep down, I really like and appreciate, I'm a good person. So this is a really great strategy. Again, learning how to assert yourself that love and appreciating by saying, even though, and say something that, there's something you want to work on yourself. and then you replace it with this. It becomes really powerful. Now you can do this also with somebody else, right? So you can partner up with someone, get the other person to throw negative statements like, I hate you, you're a loser, you're such a messy slob, why do you always, so take these statements and then you're going to reframe them into something along the lines of, all right, so even though I sometimes lose, all right, even though sometimes I don't get the best of marks, so the person that's calls you a loser, you could say something by reframing it and talking back to them by saying, even though, I sometimes lose, or I don't get the ball, and I don't shoot the puck in, or I don't get the soccer ball in, or I don't do that well. Nevertheless, I am still a person of worth, right? I can still make mistakes. That doesn't make me a bad person, right? So you see how you've reframed that. And so this exercise, okay, over the next few days, what you want to do is to practice this, even though ABC, nevertheless, and then you do something that shows appreciation to yourself. When you give that appreciation to yourself, this is where you're building that love. And when you're building that love, you are fostering, okay, that feeling, right? Because when you foster that feeling, this then gives you an attitude of wellness for yourself in each moment that you do that. And this is a conscious decision of choice that we can do daily. This is the commitment that we can give to ourselves. It's an intentional commitment that we're going to be doing self-appreciation with this, even though, nevertheless activity, where when you write it out as well, it helps, reinforce it as well. And so when you do that, you're growing your self-esteem as well. So this is a great activity to do when you want to cultivate, rather assert that self-love, okay? Really, really appreciate this activity, because right away, when you do it in your head right away, you're not really going to jump to it, right? So you can apply this strategy whenever, let's say, you were faced with a difficult situation or event. Look at the statement that you use and the effect of how negative you felt, and then you can do that, even though, nevertheless, and work on building that feeling of love within yourself. Let's take a look at the eyes of meditation, right? And the idea behind this activity, it's a really nice way to help you experience yourself joyfully and, again, with appreciation. So first, find a nice, quiet, relaxing place, either lying down for about 10 minutes. Okay, you need 10 minutes for this. And once you've settled in, imagine that you're sitting in the presence of a very trusted and very loving person. So a dear friend, a loving family member, perhaps God, right? Or a saint or imaginary being, or anything that brings you that comfort, right? So this being sees you realistically and very lovingly. Imagine that you can see yourself through this being's eyes, the eyes of love. What is there to appreciate? So let's look thoroughly. Is there something pleasing or attractive physically? Notice all pleasing personality or character traits, such as intelligence, brightness, insightfulness, laughter, humor, integrity, peacefulness, good taste, patience, etc. Notice all of your talents and skills. Notice the appearance beyond pure physical attributes, such as countenance, expression, or smile. Now behold yourself through the eyes of love and appreciation, and enjoy the experience for a few moments. Remember, through the eyes of the other, right? Now, reassociate back into your own body, because you're pretending to be someone else, right? Feel all those feelings of love and appreciation from this loving being. Feel warm, happy, at ease, secure, and say to yourself silently, I am lovable. And feel those feelings of love and appreciation grow inside of you. A very, very powerful strategy. Now we have liking the face in the mirror, looking into your soul. You know how they say the eyes are the windows to the soul, right? This is a beautiful reflection of learning how to like that, okay? And so one of the most powerful exercises that we can take a look at, that the author presents, what he learned from a chaplain. So let's take a look at this. What are you worth? So some people would reply, I'm worth $25 an hour. That's what I'm paid. I am not worth anything. If you don't believe me, ask my dad, spouse, my partner, whomever. I'm not worth anything except for the morale of whomever I'm in charge of. So as we looked at earlier, we cannot put a finite value on the worth of an individual. Do we do it? Of course we do, right? This is part of how we reduce a person to a salary or insurance policy or a rank or position, our talents and what we can take from them. So let's repeat here this basic constant tenet that each person is of infinite, unchanging, and equal worth. Now, have you ever taken the time to look at the mirror, right? Or look rather into your own eyes and see the core worth? I bet we don't do that, right? We're looking at the imperfections of ourselves. So we can learn to like ourselves this way. How? So it might take a little bit of practice, but this is a great skill that can change the way you think about mirrors. So the other way people view you may be distorted by the way they see themselves. However, a mirror reflects quite accurately the images, right? So when you view yourself in a mirror, your attention might be drawn to your appearance, your clothes, your hair, the blemishes, or other externals. However, what we're going to do in this exercise is that we want to see yourself differently than you've ever seen yourself before. So over the next few days, the reflection of the self, activity, exercise, you're going to take out a mirror several times throughout the course of each of the days. You're going to look into your eyes in the mirror with the eyes of love. As you look, you might first notice perhaps there's a little bit of stress around the eyes, right? Look with real understanding and emotion, okay? Try to understand what's behind the stress and let it subside. As you look deeply with love, you will notice a change in your eyes and in your entire countenance. We want you to experience that, right? So again, repeat this exercise often. And you can use a car mirror as well, right? So let's do this again. Look into your eyes in the mirror with the eyes of love. And as you look, again, notice the stress that you may feel around the eyes and look with understanding and emotion. Try to understand what's behind the stress and let it subside. And look deeply with love. You'll notice a change in your eyes as you change your entire countenance. Practice this often for the next few days and looking at yourself in a different way. And you'll see how incredibly powerful. You'll start seeing your core self. You start seeing yourself as wholesome, like a good feeling that can take root and it can grow, right? You want to appreciate yourself a little bit more, the appearance, the externals, and come to assume the correct importance of your value, right? You may notice that you begin to look forward to, enjoy looking into your eyes into the mirror instead of dreading it, because your focus is now on what is of the infinite worth of the core, which you see with love. A very, very powerful exercise. Do this again and again, and you'll notice a huge, huge difference into yourself as you build and foster and develop and grow that beautiful part of yourself. As we head into the last part here, we're going to be doing this beautiful meditation. Before I do an overview of unconditional love, I'd like to go back and do the reinforcing and strengthening of body appreciation. I like to do that with a little bit of sound. Tell me if you can hear the sound in the background. Don't want it too loud. And that way we can appreciate both the sound of the background as well as what I'm about to read to you, which is beautiful, beautiful when it comes to appreciating our body. We have, as you notice right now, what we have done is we have cultivated the eyes of loving meditation. We've started liking the face in the mirror. We've also asserted self-love and appreciation. And remember what we started off with, cultivating our body appreciation. Now what we're going to do is we're going to reinforce and strengthen body appreciation with this beautiful meditation that I've been doing for years with people, especially those who have body image issues. I absolutely find this to be incredibly powerful. And I invite you to join in with me. I just want a confirmation. Do you hear both the music as well as my voice in a good balance? Because sometimes when I put the sound, it becomes really loud and then it disturbs the sound. So I just want to make sure that it's good. All right. So let's get started with this beautiful body appreciation. And this is done, this was done by a very well-known teacher of self-esteem, Jack Canfield, in 1985. And it's a very effective way to reinforce the habit of experiencing the body with an appreciation. It takes about 30 minutes, but I'm going to speed through it. And you can have somebody read it to you, or you can listen to it here once the recording is finished. Read it slowly to each part to really take it in a quiet place so that you're not disturbed. Okay? And you can do this daily for the next few days as well. So welcome. Let's start with this. Find a comfortable position. You can lay down, sit in a chair while we go through this. You can be on the floor, on the bed, wherever you like. Take a moment to get comfortable and become aware of your body now. You may wish to stretch various parts of your body, your arms, your legs, your neck, or your back, just to brighten and heighten the awareness of your body. And now begin to take a few deep, longer and slower breaths. Inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth, if you're able to do, and continue the long, slow, rhythmic breathing. Now let's take a few moments to focus on and appreciate your body. Feel the air coming in and out of your lungs, bringing you life energy. Be aware that your lungs go on breathing even when you are not aware of them. Breathing in and out all day long, all night, even when you sleep, breathing in oxygen, breathing in fresh, pure air, breathing out the waste products, cleansing and restoring the entire body, a constant flow and outflow of air, just like the ocean, like the tide coming in and out. And so just now, send a beautiful and radiant white light and love to your lungs, and realize that ever since you took your first breath, your lungs have been there for you. No matter what we do, they still keep breathing in and out all day long. Now, become aware of your diaphragm, that muscle below your lung that goes up and down and continuously allows your lungs to breathe. Send light and love to your diaphragm. Now become aware of your heart. Feel it and appreciate it. Your heart is a living miracle. It keeps beating ceaselessly, never asking for anything. A tireless muscle that continues to constantly serve you, sending life-giving nutrients throughout your body to every cell. What a beautiful and powerful instrument. Day in and day out, your heart has been beating, and so you see your heart surrounded by white light and warmth, and say silently, I love you and I appreciate you to your heart. Become aware now of your blood, which is pumped through your heart. It is the river of life for your body. Millions upon millions of blood cells, red corpuscles and white corpuscles, anticoagulants, antibodies flowing through your bloodstream, fighting off disease, providing you with immunity and healing, bringing oxygen from your lungs to every cell in your body, all the way down to your toes and up into your head, your hair. Feel that blood moving through your veins and arteries, and surround all those veins and arteries with white light. See it dancing in the bloodstream as if it were bringing joy and love to each cell. And now become aware of your chest, as if it were bringing joy to your ribcage. And you can feel it rising and falling with your breathing. Your ribcage that protects all of the organs of your body, protects your heart, your lungs, keeping them safe. So let yourself send love and light to those bones that make up your rib cage, and then become aware of your stomach, your intestines, your kidneys and your liver, all the organs of your body that bring in food and digest and provide the nutrients for your body, balancing and purifying your blood, your kidneys, your bladder, your whole body from your neck down to your waist, surrounded, and fill it with that beautiful white light. Now become aware of your legs that allow you to walk and to run and to dance and to jump. They allow you to stand up into the world, to move and to run and to make yourself breathless with exhilaration. Allow yourself to appreciate your legs and to feel them surrounded with white light, and see all the muscles and bones in your legs filled with radiant white light. And say to your legs, I love you, legs, and I appreciate all the work that you've done. And then become aware of your feet. They let you stay balanced as you go throughout the world. They allow you to climb and to run, and they support you every day. And so thank your feet for allowing you to be there and supporting you. And then become of your arms. The arms are miracles too. And your hands. Think of all the things you're able to do because of your hands and your arms. You can write, you can type, you can reach out and touch things. You can pick things up, you can use them. You can bring food to your mouth. You can put things away that you don't want. You can scratch, you can itch, you can turn the pages of a book, cook food, drive your car, give someone a massage, tickle someone, defend yourself, or give somebody a hug. You can reach out and make contact with your world and with others. So see your arms and your hands surrounded with white light and send them your love. And then allow yourself to feel gratitude for having a body, one that you can use every day to have the experiences that you want to have, that you need to grow and learn from. Then become aware of your spine, which allows you to stand up straight and provides a structure for your whole body and provides protection for your nerves that go from your brain down to your spine and out to the rest of your body. See a golden light floating up to your spine, from the base of your spine to your pelvis, floating up your spine one vertebra at a time, moving up to your spine, all the way up to your neck, to the top of your spine, where your skull connects, and let that golden light flow up into your brain. And become aware of your vocal cords in your neck that allow you to speak, to be heard, to communicate, to be understood, and to sing and to chant and to pray and to shout and yell with delight and excitement, to express your feelings and to cry and to share your deepest thoughts and your dreams. Then become aware of the left side of your brain, the part of your brain that analyzes and computes, that solves problems and plans for the future, that calculates and reasons and deducts and inducts. Just allow yourself to appreciate what your intellect provides for you and see the left side of your brain totally filled with that golden and white light and shimmering little stars, and see that white light cleanse and awaken and love and nurture the part of your brain. And let that light now begin to flow across the bridge from the left to the right side of your brain, to the intuitive, to dream, to daydream, to visualize, to create, and to talk to your higher wisdom, the part of your brain that allows you to write poetry, to draw, and to appreciate art and music. See the side of your brain filled with white and golden light. Then sense the light flowing down the nerves into your eyes, and see and feel your eyes filled with that light, and realize the beauty that your eyes allow you to perceive, the flowers and the sunsets and the beautiful people inside and out, all the things that you've been able to appreciate through your eyes. And then become aware of your nose. It allows you to smell and to breathe and to taste all the wonderful tastes and smells in your life. The beautiful fragrances of flowers and the essence of all the foods and the ones that you love. Now become aware of your ears. They allow you to hear music, to listen to the wind, the sound of the surf at the ocean, the singing of the birds, and listen to the words, I love you. I love you. This is what your ears allow you to hear, and to be in discussions and to listen to the ideas of another, to allow understanding to come forward. And now feel every part of yourself, from head to toe, surrounded and filled with your own love and your own light. And now take a moment and allow yourself to apologize to your body for anything you may have done to it, for the times you were not kind to it, for the times you didn't care for it with love, for the times you didn't listen to it, for the times you put too much food or alcohol or drugs or things that were not good for you, for the times you were too busy to eat, too busy to exercise, too busy for a massage, for a hot bath, for all the times your body wanted to be hugged or touched, but you held back. Apologize to your body. And once again, feel your body and see yourself surrounded with white light. And now let that light begin to expand out from your body out into the world. Expanding out, filling the space around you. Now begin to bring that light slowly back into yourself, very slowly, back into your body, back into yourself, and experience yourself here, now, full of light, full of love, full of appreciation for your body. And when you are ready, perhaps you begin to let yourself stretch and feel the awareness and aliveness back into your body. And when you are ready, you can slowly begin to stretch, to sit up, to readjust to being in the room, and just let your eyes open, taking as much time as you need to make that transition. Keep breathing deeply and understand how powerful this exercise and how effective it is. And it often increases in practice as you relax and you practice. Useful feelings and insights might start coming out. And although the feelings that are experienced are usually quite pleasant, this may not always be the case. So be aware of that. For example, sometimes somebody can be very tearful. You may be experiencing tears when we did this, right? And the next time they did it, they didn't have those tears, but they appreciated it, right? Some people perhaps who, let's say as a youth, they wanted to be a figure skater, right? But their legs have been seriously burned. And this example here of this person who experienced those tears was because they never appreciated their legs, because it never got them to be the figure skater that they wanted. So they had a lot of anger built up. But then this exercise, when they did it, they stopped hating their legs. They started to appreciate their legs, regardless of that. So this type of practice of cultivating our body appreciation by understanding the different parts of our bodies, appreciating them, how magnificent they are, but then looking at this body appreciation, how beautifully powerful it is when we understand how we can give that love to ourselves, then we can truly appreciate. Practice this often. You have now the recording for it. You're more than welcome to email me and I'll be happy to send you the title of the book. Again, it's called Self-Esteem Workbook by Dr. Glenn Giraldi. So we are now at the very end of our session today in terms of what we took a look at. And as a summary into looking at how we can cultivate and understand all of these that we took a look at today, it's really important with our supportive ideas, right? After exploring the skills, we did lots of strategies and skills to building the second building block, which is love of self-esteem, unconditional love. It's really important to review these ideas. So some ideas here to take away today is love for our core self is a wholesome feeling. It's also an attitude of wanting what is best for oneself and a decision that we can decide every day. Psychological health and growth depend on love of our core self, not relying on others. That's a part of it, but we want to focus on ourselves. Love is learned and acquired through practice. And we are responsible for cultivating the love of our core self. And we can count on this love, even if we cannot count on the love and support for others. So the skills that we took a look at today was learning how to find, love, and heal the core self. Remember the inner child, right? We looked at changing channels, right? Using positive words and changing channels with that.
We took a look at acknowledging and accepting our positive qualities. We cultivated body appreciation by looking at the different systems of our system that work so magnificently well to make us our magnificent selves, that we can function the way we can. Even in sickness, our bodies are still working hard to help us. We utilize the even though nevertheless skill by applying it more to ourselves. We did the eyes of love meditation and liking the face in the mirror by looking into our eyes and our souls just as though we would to a love. And finally, we reinforced and strengthened the body appreciation with this beautiful meditation that we did. And to reinforce these important skills, I want you to take a few minutes with these reflective questions, right? And look at what are the most meaningful things that stood out for you today that you can apply. And follow up to that, what are some of the skills that you would like to remember and use forward? And how can you practice them a little bit more into your daily life for a regular, long period of time? Because as we know, this is for next week, because as we know, the more we practice these strategies and these skills and make it routine, then we learn to make it a habit, good, positive, amazing habits. So this is our summary today of experiencing unconditional love from ourselves, giving it to ourselves, just as though we would give it to somebody else. And I highly recommend that you practice these. You have them all in this recording that you can come back and look at, or you can get this book, like we said, and then you can have it with you to reflect and use. Next week, we'll be taking a look at our final section, which is on growth. And this was our final building block to the first one that we did, which was our core worth. Today we did the one on love. Next week we'll do growth to make sure that our self-esteem is always in that balance. For any of you have any questions or any comments or concerns, absolutely you can message me through both YouTube as well as the Facebook page that you have there, or you can email me berak.hussain@carleton.ca. So berak.hussain@carleton.ca. I'd be more than happy to answer. For any of you who would like to book an appointment, if you're Carleton students, if in any way you were triggered or